This week on BSD Now, we have some big breaking news about another major switcher to FreeBSD, plus early information about the pending OpenBSD 6.0 release in September. Stay tuned, BSD Now is coming your way right now. BSD Now, episode 152, The Laporte has landed, recorded July 27th, 2016. Hey, I'm your host, Chris Moore.
And I'm Alan Jude.
Oh, you're coming. There he is. He made it.
I was waiting for the video to catch up on the set.
Okay. So the video caught up. Well, we are now here, and it is, end of July already. There's a lot of stuff happening in the next couple of months, Alan. I know you got like BSDcon coming up. And then EuroBSDcon in September. We got releases of FreeBSD and OpenBSD. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to get to. So this is going to be an interesting month going into August. So you'll want to make sure you stick around for all of it for upcoming BSD Now episodes. And we'll enjoy sharing that news with you. But speaking of news, we have kind of a barn-burning headline this week. I don't know how many people emailed me this. I had people in my office tell me this, like, Chris, you need to get this on the show. So anyway, the big news was that Laporte has tried FreeBSD and posted about it up on his blog there, which if you don't know, he's formerly of TechTV and now of TwitTV, is now switching to FreeBSD. So tell us a little about this, Alan.
Yeah.
What prompted this?
Well, so apparently his Windows computer decided to force upgrade itself to Windows 10. And he decided enough of that.
Oops.
So he said, the latest debacle over the forced upgrade to Windows 10 and Apple's increasingly locked-in ecosystem has got me thinking. Do I really need to use a proprietary operating system to get work done? And while I'm at it, do I need to use commercial cloud services to store my data?
No.
Exactly. He's been a sometimes Linux user since the mid-90s, and he still actually has his laptop is Linux. But when he was building his workstation, he's like, well, I want serious storage. And what better operating system to deal with serious storage than FreeBSD?
Was EFS? Yes. Of course.
Yeah, he says, but as time went by, even Ubuntu seemed to be too commercial for him, he says. And so he says, now for the grand experiment. Is it possible, I wonder, to do everything I need to do on an even more venerable, more robust system, a true Unix OS, FreeBSD? And he... smartly, for some of the switching, he actually made a list of things he needs to be able to do. And so his requirements were that he wants something that's stable, that works even after updates. It's like, well, FreeBSD is good at that. I've upgraded my FreeBSD 6.0 machine in place all the way to 10.3 using FreeBSD update, one step at a time as I went through the years, and it's been perfect the whole way.
Sure.
He says security, no viruses, no exploits, no snoops or spooks, especially now with Windows having so much silent stuff happening and so on.
The one thing, just give me a moment to vent here. On Windows 10, which is what I use for the Skype here for production, it just really annoys me that I have to get advertisements on the right-hand side. Like, try Office. Have you tried our other product? Like, come on. Does that need to be just built into the operating system? Okay, rant over. Sorry.
He says he wants UI that looks good but doesn't get in the way, and he wants it to be pretty fast. But the important thing is what he wants to be able to do is web browsing. That works pretty well. Email with PGP signing and encryption. Basically, everybody in FreeBSD does that. Coding. Sure. He says he's a hobbyist programmer and requires support for Lisp, Scheme, and Racket, Rust, and Python. And maybe even, he mentions Forth.
I know. What the heck?
Hey, Leo, come help me work on the boot menu.
We have our new bootloader program.
He wants to be able to do writing because obviously he runs blogs and podcasts and so on, so he does a lot of writing. He wants a password vault. He says he currently uses LastPass, and I use that on FreeBSD and it works very well. Although he's looking at maybe some kind of free open source replacement for LastPass. So if you have ideas for that, let him know. And he wants to do some light photo editing. He says he loves Photoshop and Lightroom, but he's pretty sure he can get away with GIMP and Darktable for the amount of editing he actually does.
Sure.
He even pulls out that, really old rant from Matthew Fuller about BSD versus Linux, as for some of the other reasons and so on. He mentions, specifically, he talks about a little bit about why he chose FreeBSD over, say, OpenBSD, NetBSD, or even PCBSD. And it's really, going for the larger community and the handbook and so on. Although PCBSD has a version of the handbook with even more stuff in it, right?
Sure.
But and we're glad to see him land on FreeBSD. He says he does have a contingency plan. He's not throwing away his Windows computer or his Mac or his Linux machine, but his main workstation is going to be this FreeBSD machine.
Nice.
So he bought a nice workstation here. It's a Supermicro X11 based motherboard with a Xeon E3 1275 V5. That's the latest Skylake E5, E3. I have a server with one of these. It's really, really nice and super fast. The base clock is 3.6 gigahertz, and it's got 4 actual cores plus hyperthreading, and all the latest Skylake everything, DDR4 RAM, etc. It's got 32 gigs of ECC, a 512 gig NVMe M2 for his OS drive, which will be ZFS, nice. And then 4 1 terabyte Samsung SSDs that will be his storage pool. So that'll be really fast. 4 1 terabyte SSDs.
Oh, yeah.
Samsung Evo 850s.
You almost don't even need the NVMe at that point.
Right, yeah, exactly. Plus a DVD burner, because he actually bought his set of FreeBSD DVDs, which is nice. And then an NVIDIA GTX 960. That's actually the card I have. And that obviously works very well under FreeBSD as well. This is, although it's not really for gaming, because, he's got his Xbox and his PS4. Your PS4 runs FreeBSD too.
That's true. So,
and it says,
so this is his second FreeBSD box.
Yeah. And then, the third, because he's got the Mac, right?
Oh yeah.
And he's got a 450 megabit wireless and dual band PCIe adapter with 3 antennas. He says, yes, sad to say, unless I rewire my house, I will have to use Wi-Fi on this beast. So I'll probably rewire my house.
Right.
Well, yes, if it's going to be your storage server and you're going to have 4 SSDs in a ZFS pool, you're going to need some fast wired networking. You're going to want
serving that over Wi-Fi just makes no sense.
Yeah, get some 10 gigabit going. You'll be much happier.
This is the boat anchor I attached to my Porsche.
Yeah, exactly. He says he also ordered a small NUC style box that he's going to look at doing his little self-hosted cloud with it. But yeah, so I found that pretty interesting. And I'll continue to chronicle my journey into the land of free open source software here once the Beast arrives, which is what he's named his FreeBSD box. But he says, in the meantime, excuse me, I have some reading to go do. But I also found this other clip from one of his other shows. If I can find it here in a second. He has Model X here that he...
Yep.
Wheel drive on the back, but it also tells you that this car is powered by, wait for it, FreeBSD. That's actually a lie. It is not powered by FreeBSD, but I wish it were.
But it's not powered by gas.
It's not powered by gas.
So how was the factory tour?
Oh my gosh, I don't...
Yes. So the first thing he did was slap a FreeBSD or powered by FreeBSD sticker on the back of his new Tesla.
Hey, well, good a place as any for it.
Yes,
that's really cool.
Was, quite amusing.
So, you know what? Do we have to get Leo on the show at some point?
We're going to try.
That would be really cool. That would be really cool. So Leo, or if anybody knows Leo and is watching this, bug him. Yes. That way he comes on the show.
Yes.
We'd love to talk about this.
Get in touch, and then we'll that'll solve our interview problem for 1 week.
There you go. But no, it'll be a good interview.
Yes.
It'll be awesome. Okay, well, we, of course, wish him all the luck with his new adventure and powering the beast with FreeBSD, and we'll look forward to bringing you guys more stories. I'm sure he'll be writing about it further down the road. Okay, so moving on here. So OpenBSD 6.0 is just around the corner. It looks like it's currently slated for September 1st, and it brings with it a whole slew of exciting new features, and we kind of have the early preview of what the tentative release notes look like here. So first up, of course, let's get this right out of the way. A moment of silence, please, because VAX support has been dropped from 6.0. And the one person who still cared has picked himself up off the floor at this point, and life moves on. But however, to make up for the devastating loss of VAX, they have added ARM v7 to the release. So we do have a modern new processor.
With an EFI bootloader.
That's right. So not a big loss in my opinion. But anyway, aside from that, the tentative release notes are actually pretty complete, and Mark 6.0 is quite an exciting release. So I wanted to go through some of those with you here, Alan. I think there's quite a bit of stuff they've done, but of course, as related to the ARM v7, they've added the EFI bootloader. Kernels are now loaded from a fast file system instead of FAT or EXT without the U-boot header, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, they have a single kernel and RAM disk now all used for the SoCs. Hardware is dynamically enumerated via the flattened device tree. So that's good. And then they have a mini root installer images that include U-boot 2016-07 with support for EFI payloads. So good stuff.
Lots of new hardware support I see here.
I know. I was drooling over some of this.
Even just GPIO controllers on all the new little Intel things like the Bay Trail and Cherry View. And lots of other little devices, including SMP network stack improvements for the transmit queues on the CN Mac driver as well, so you can get more networking, use more of your CPUs for your networking.
Well, hey, you bypassed, you can't not mention the IWM driver's gotten some more model support too. So if you have wireless 3165 or 8260, which that's what I have in those new X1 Carbons coming, is the 8260. I got to make sure, I don't know if that's been ported over yet to FreeBSD.
I know Sean Bruno imported a bunch of new firmware like yesterday or Sunday.
Oh, well, okay, good, because my laptop hasn't showed up yet. It's about 2 weeks out, so hopefully just
it worked on George Neville Neal's Sandy Bridge, or sorry, not Sandy Bridge, Skylake. He's got an X. He's got an X260, so that's the same newest gen. Right?
Awesome. Okay. Anyway, keep on going.
Lots of other stuff.
Let's see. So the wireless stack got some improvements. So the HT block ACK receive buffer logic now follows the algorithm given in the 802.11.2012 specs a little more closely. The IWN driver now keeps track of HT protection changes while associated with an N AP.
Yes, the IWN is the slightly older for the 6000-ish series of Intel wireless, like 6205 that I have in my X220 and T530.
That's right.
Other interesting one here is the priority field in the VLAN headers is now correctly set on each fragment of an IPv4 packet going out of a VLAN interface.
Okay, nice. I love installer improvements, ... So to be continued. There'll probably be some changes there before the release goes out. Let's see. They've added some routing table support to RC.D and RCCTL. And C got some improvements.
Security improvements. They have WXRX is now strictly enforced by default. A program can only violate it if the executable is marked with the special OpenBSD WX needed flag or is located on a file system which is mounted with the WX allowed mount option.
Nice. Okay, they remove systrace. They remove something else we'll get to in a second after the notes here.
Stuff we've covered previously. They have their SROP mitigation with SIG return can only be used by kernel-provided signal trampolines. And there's a cookie to protect it against misuse or reuse.
Nice.
And then I guess other big thing we have in the news here is the removal of the Linux emulation support.
Ah, you spoiled it. That's what I was going to get to next. But yeah, we'll talk about that here in a moment. What else here?
Just tons of stuff.
They got
new versions of
all their other ports.
Open SMTPD, new version of OpenSSH, OpenNTPD, the latest LibreSSL, etc.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. And then they, of course, list some of the outside stuff that's coming in. Looks like new versions of GCC, Xenokara, which is, of course, their version of Xorg. Bin utils. There's a new version of okay. Let's see, and then some highlights of some of the bigger stuff, like they have KDE, let's see, 3.5.10 and 4.14.3, and then different Pythons, Mutt, Node.js, et cetera, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the release notes here, so definitely check it out, although they might change a little bit because this is the preliminaries before release September 1st. But speaking of this, in other news related to this, first of all, the pre-orders are up, so we should mention that. So if you want to go ahead and pre-purchase your CD, do that now. And second of all, InfoWorld actually picked up on this. They picked up on the story about the pending removal of the Linux compat layer from OpenBSD 6 and wrote
yeah,
about that.
They moved it from head a while ago, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Yeah. So people are just starting to catch up to us. And then, of course, with the 6.0 release, this will be official. But touting it as a security feature, of course, you'll soon be unable to run legacy Linux binaries on OpenBSD. So, of course, my opinion on that is it has both positive and negatives, depending on your use case.
In particular, yes, OpenBSD's reasoning for removing their Linux compat layer was security, but it's because their Linux compat layer hadn't been updated in a long time, and so had all these problems. Whereas, not that I'm saying that the FreeBSD Linux compat layer doesn't have a bunch of problems that need to be fixed.
Sure. It probably does.
But
we are emulating Linux after all.
They didn't remove it because Linux is inherently bad or something. They removed it because there was no interest in OpenBSD in maintaining it. And so in that case, the OpenBSD policy is get rid of it because that way there's fewer attack vectors.
Get rid of the cruft.
I think the InfoWorld may be slightly skewing the story because of their lack of understanding, but
I believe so. But ironically, we're waiting for improved Linux compat support in FreeBSD because, from my perspective, I want to run some closed source stuff out there, like Steam maybe, or Skype, or, be able to watch Netflix, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens with that. And of course, it was interesting to see that InfoWorld picked up on that. But we will keep an eye out because it looks like 6.0 is going to be a barn burner release. Lots of good new stuff in there. And we'll bring you the final, release notes once they get closer to September 1st here.
Yep.
Okay, so before we get into the rest of the news this week, which we're changing things up a little bit on you, we're going to do our IXsystems spot right now, but we want to mention our first sponsor this week, which is going to be IXsystems, and of course the website for that, IXsystems.com/BSDNow, where you can go and fill out the guide there and download the free guide on what to purchase or what to look for in a vendor when you're purchasing a system for open source.
Yeah.
The kind of things you need to ask.
Yeah, basically they give you a list of things that if you ask them of some other place that you might buy your hardware, you wouldn't like the answer.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you would realize, hey, I really should be using IX. It's
for sure.
Exactly why I do.
And of course, IXsystems builds with the latest and greatest Intel processors, and they can get you stuff that's maybe a little harder to find at the moment, which they've done for Alan before. And they're really good about that. So the cool thing about talking to IX is when you call up and speak to one of the sales guys there, they're pretty much sales engineers at that point, right? They're going to ask you, what are you doing? Not just, okay, here's the 5 models we can offer you. Which one do you want? It's going to be more like, are you running a mail server? Okay, well, let's see. How do we want to set up your disks? How many disks do you need? Do you need a ZIL? Do you need et cetera, et cetera?
Right. Yes.
And then help you figure out what's going to give you the best performance for your money.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you're doing a mail server. How many thousand mailboxes do you need to be able to support? And,
or is this a big storage box? Are you doing a lot of NFS files or just a few big files?
Yeah, so you have big files or small files, and how often are they changing? And if are files being edited in real time on this thing, or are they just being copied to it? Because it all makes a difference. If you need to be able to edit live files and have them be safe, then you probably want a ZIL to speed that up. But if you're just storing your bulk files over on the NAS in the corner or whatever, then you don't need to spend the money on that. You can get that much more storage in the same budget that way.
Sure. So definitely get in touch with these guys. They can build you everything from the small little FreeNAS Mini, which you can get the 4-bay model, or now the Mini XL, which is the 8-bay model, all the way up to these powerhouse systems we've seen them build with just crazy amounts of RAM, the one with 10 40 gig NICs. Let's see, what else we've talked about in the past. They've done the Terrafiler before. I forget how many hard drives that is. It was some crazy amount. So the point is they can build you that and everything in between. So just call them, tell them what you're looking to do, and let them work with you to make the solution that's going to fit your budget and fit exactly the performance requirements you have. Okay. Anything else you want to add on that one, Alan?
Nope.
All right. Well, let's move on then. So next up, the EuroBSDcon schedule has been released.
Yep.
So for those who don't know or didn't remember, EuroBSDcon is just around the corner. It looks like September 22nd to the 25th. It's in Serbia.
Yep, in Belgrade.
Which city? Belgrade? Okay. And Alan will be there. I will not this year. So if you want to go meet Alan, get him to sign maybe your copy of ZFS Mastery, you should do that. So bring it with you. Are you bringing any to sell there?
Probably not. They're kind of bulky and difficult.
Bring your own then. Yeah, bring your own if you want him to alongside it. But we do have the schedule. So first up, of course, we wanted to mention George Neville Neals, who we've interviewed here in the past, is going to be giving the keynote.
Yes, the opening keynote. There are two.
Decades. Yeah, the opening keynote about the coming decades of FreeBSD.
Well, he just says BSD.
Or BSD, excuse me. I want to put that in there whenever I see George's name associated with it.
But it's interesting. I wonder which one of the two keynotes came first, because the closing keynote is the coming decade of internet.
Okay.
So I wonder who stole the idea from who, or if they, if the conference picked
almost
those.
like they planned it. Interesting.
But there's quite a selection of different talks happening. I also like the fact that they made it not start until 9 a.m., so we're not getting up too early. But yeah, so they have quite a bit of heavy networking skew in this conference. I imagine that has to do with the organizers being Philip and Henning, who are both very much into networking.
Sure.
But yeah, it's BSD routing tables, and then Brad Davis is talking about packaging the FreeBSD based system,
Okay.
and then there's a NetBSD talk about sub files.
Okay.
Then a mix of talks that you might have missed at BSDCon, with a mix of new stuff as well. So that's good. So the rc.d from OpenBSD, Hello World, and everything you ever want to know about C from Brooks Davis. But then they have a primer on synchronizing multiprocessor kernel resources. So that's, lessons learned from trying to SMP OpenBSD. Then OpenBSD meets 802.11n. So if you're interested in wireless, that's probably a good talk. Then over here they have BXR.su, the OpenGrok, Nginx, and all of the web writing and rewriting web apps using your Nginx config file. So definitely good sysadmin content there as well.
Sure.
Bulk building in the many-core era. I wonder if they're that's.
Wonder what tools they're talking about there.
Yeah.
If that's like Pruder or Synth, that kind of thing.
I think that kind of thing, but for other OSs.
Okay.
Then they have PF plus R domains to create multi-tenancy firewalls. So one firewall device that actually is managed for multiple customers. LibreSSL and OpenSSL and FreeBSD base.
I need to bug Bernard about that. I should turn that on. That looks really good. Okay, go ahead.
Automated learning from man pages. That sounds interesting. Dropping in 80 gigabits of stateful firewall capacity using PF and OSPFD. That's a lot of letters in a row. Then Dan Langille will actually be giving Talos, why they use open source to fight threats. That one sounds interesting. And then we have synchronizing userland source code amongst the BSDs by Seven Janiam. We'll have to have him on and talk to us. But I think it's really nice to see a project to actually just get some of the small improvements made to various little userland utilities synchronized across all the BSDs. So that the latest features in like Netcat are in every BSD, and that one cool improvement that I think it was the less utility they changed in OpenBSD to make it so you can search man pages contextually, have that available everywhere and so on. So, that's a question we often get actually into the show is about, how do the different BSDs actually go about keeping the common bits of code in sync, and it's usually because someone did a bunch of the work, and so it's great to see Seven doing a bunch of that work.
Okay, so that's, I guess, Saturday.
And then Sunday, we have what we learned from natively building packages on exotic architectures. This is from OpenBSD's style of, we build the Spark stuff on a Spark, not cross-built. Then we have Emmanuel Velo is talking about Allwinner ARM support on FreeBSD 11. And then another NetBSD talk about multi-processor safe networking in NetBSD. And then Peter Hessler talking about his bidirectional forwarding detection and so on. Li Wenxiu is talking about continuous integration on the FreeBSD project. And Baptiste is talking about his FreeBSD-based high-density filers. Then we have an interesting one. Arun Thomas is talking about dtrace internals and actually digging into dtrace. Okay. So, now that I've taken George Neville Neal's dtrace course and understand how it works, digging into it even more sounds quite fun. And then there's another talk about towards fast IP forwarding. Again, continuing the network slant we've seen a lot. But then there's another interesting one that I'm very interested in. Proposing a replacement for FreeBSD's PowerD.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's Any details on that?
Not yet, but I'm very
You're gonna have to go to
interested.
the talk and tell me.
I would love to see that. And actually, in the shower on Monday, I had an interesting idea about trying to use CPU sets to try to let half the cores on my laptop go to sleep unless the CPU load goes above a certain threshold or something. And seeing about things like that to rather than trying to rewrite the scheduler, which seems awfully complicated for me who doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
But I can write a tool that looks at your current CPU load and then runs some CPU set syscalls and see about that. But yeah, that's interesting. And then Mark SB will talking about retrofitting PrivSep into ports tools. And I think that's they're getting PrivSep and Pledge and so on upstreamed into some of the ports that are popular on OpenBSD, which would be interesting.
Nice.
Then there's measurement and improvement of the software-based IPsec implementation on FreeBSD. And then Ingo Swerzy will be talking about why and how you ought to keep multi-byte character support simple.
Sure.
And that's I know something that's been quite a bit of work has gone into FreeBSD and a lot into OpenBSD to support that. And so it'll be interesting to see what we can do to offer that support without overcomplicating it for ourselves. And then the closing keynote, like I said, will be the coming decade of internet.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And then there will be the closing where they'll tell us where it'll be next year.
Ooh, of course, we will tell you that as soon as we find out.
Yes. Also, reminder,
Tutorials, too.
registration is open now, and they have a discount code with the hotel, so you can get your room for only €80 a night, which is quite nice for especially a hotel that nice.
So it looks like they have some full 2-day tutorials here. They got Kirk McCusic's doing an intro to FreeBSD open source, and then George Temple Neal's going to be doing a dtrace tutorial. That looks good. Then on the second day, or on Friday here, OpenBSD has a tutorial as well, building a test environment for multi-tenancy firewalls. And then a half day is a novice to advanced SALT on BSD.
Yes.
So it looks like you got about 4 different tutorials to choose from. So make sure you sign up for those as well.
Yes, I can highly recommend the dtrace one because I've taken it. I've always wanted to take Kirk's, but now that I'm a developer, I go to the Dev Summit and kind of miss out on that.
Okay, great. Well, cool. That sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you've got your tickets and everything booked and your hotels ready. And, of course, bring your book to have Alan sign it while he's out there. Okay, we're going to head right into the news roundup. So, of course, kind of fitting with our lead story today, we have a little blast from the past to tease you with. Since we're not doing an interview this week, we're still working on getting some people lined up. But the Leo Laporte story brought back some memories of some old gems from TechTV that are up on YouTube. And I think Alan wanted to show you a little bit about that. But we'll have the full links in the show notes. So afterwards, if you want to go watch them all, you should do that. Anyway, take it away, Alan.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about FreeBSD, the best operating system we're afraid you may never have heard of. It's free, and here to walk us through FreeBSD are Matt Olander, Chief Technology Officer of MyServer, and Murray Stokely, Vice President of Engineering for FreeBSD Mall. You guys are not lightweights in the BSD community.
No, absolutely not. We've both been working with FreeBSD for quite some time. We were both part of BSDI, which was one of the original developers of the BSD kernel.
Very cool. Now you got a shocking thing. You're going to install a FreeBSD kernel in 3 minutes.
Yes, that's exactly right. Matt's brought one of their server machines here. This is a 1U machine. It's pretty basic, a Pentium 3. I'm going to go ahead and get a basic server installation installed on here, Apache web server and that sort of thing, as quickly as possible. And then we can, while this is going in the background, we can continue talking about what FreeBSD strengths are.
You install it.
Right.
What exactly is FreeBSD? What does that mean?
FreeBSD is an alternative operating system. It's great stuff. Been around for a long time, based on the Unix BSD kernel developed at Berkeley University.
Classic stuff. Classic stuff. Anyway, check out the full ones. We have FreeBSD versus Linux, of course, Matt Olander and Brooks Davis, Matt Olander and Murray Stokely. So you'll have to go check those out. Some good stuff there. Okay, well, let's move on to our next story here in the news roundup. So first up is running FreeBSD on the Libre M. So Eric McCorkle, who's been working on the EFI loader for FreeBSD for a while now, has written an update on his efforts to get FreeBSD working properly on the Libre M13 laptop.
Yeah.
So it looks like
people don't remember, this was, I don't think it was Kickstarted, but something similar to Kickstarted. The Purism Libre M laptop is basically designed to be as open source as possible and use all hardware that has good open source drivers and so on. And while the target was obviously Linux, it actually appears to be doing pretty good on BSD now.
It's a good BSD laptop as well. So he said since April, the work's been progressing nicely, and he lists some of the things that got fixed. But he said Matt Macy's i19 graphics or i915 graphics patch now works well on that. He said he's personally made sure that the suspend resume works. The patch is really stable on there. He said he's only had one kernel panic the entire time testing it, so that sounds good. He said the HDMI output just works with the i915 driver. He said even better, it works for both the X11 and console mode, which is pretty cool. He said full support for the Atheros 9462 card has been merged in. He said he's had some occasional issues, but it's working for the most part. And he said the Visa weirdness is obviated by having the new i915 driver, but he said it was also resolved by using just the SCFB driver as well. So sounds like it's coming along there. But he did mention a couple outstanding issues that are still being worked on are the support for synaptics on this particular touchpad. I guess there's a driver that needs to be ported over there, as well as a hotkey support for the keyboard, and then related to that would, of course, be getting the brightness controls working with the hotkeys as well. So he's still messing around with that. In addition, Eric's still working on some support for doing EFI plus Jelly support. I guess that's already been finished. But the bigger overall goal is to eventually get EFI Secure Boot working out of the box on this as well, which will be very interesting.
Yeah.
I think that'll be the first FreeBSD's had Secure Boot. Yep. So since I never got around to doing it with Grub because that just sounded really yucky. This is a much better solution. So that's awesome, Eric. Keep up the good work. I can't wait to look at that and see if we can pull that into what's going to end up being our Neutral OS.
Yeah, he mentions two little configuration nits he's been working on. One is that the mouse, the touchpad doesn't work after you resume from being suspended. But if you restart MouseD, then it'll fix it. And so he just added that to his rc.resume so that it happens automatically.
Why is that in by default? We put that in like 4 years ago in the PC.
Because you didn't merge it.
I didn't merge it. Well, I don't have a source commit.
Well, you just have to throw a patch at somebody and yell at them and merge.
Right, I'll have to do that. Speaking of that, reminds me, I have something else that needs to go upstream. Maybe
I'll commit anything. So.
Okay, this is like a 6-line thing, so we'll see.
And he also mentions Pulse Audio works fine, but defaults to outputting over the HDMI audio port instead of the speakers built into the laptop and the headphones.
Yeah, you have to set. There's a default sync you can set ahead of time, like if he knows you're going to be on that particular model. But otherwise, I think it's like a first come, first wins situation, right? Yeah. Whichever one it finds first.
Yeah, but anyway, there's a bunch more detail if you're interested in his longer term plans and so on. But it's very nice.
How much do those laptops cost?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but he does mention that he's buying the 15-inch version now as well.
Yeah, I'm just looking. The 13 is how much? Oh, this is the pledge here. $1,400. Looks like okay. Not bad, not bad. Anyway, that could end up becoming a very interesting laptop for BSD folks out there. All right, well, let's move on. So we have OpenBSD news, syscall fuzzing, which we talked about a couple weeks ago.
So this is another vulnerability. Yeah, so NCC Group's Project Triforce has been doing a generic syscall fuzzing against the OpenBSD kernel, and they found this one. This says, attempting to read from the tempfs VFS ops sysctl tree can panic the system with the error attempting to execute user address 0 in supervisor mode. The fact that as soon as you try to read the sysctl, your system panics is actually a good thing, believe it or not. It says, impact, any user can panic the kernel by using the sysctl call. If a user can manage to map an address or map a page at address 0, they may be able to gain kernel code execution and escalate privileges. So by default, the OpenBSD kernel doesn't allow that and panics if someone tries to do it. So in this case, panicking is good because if it didn't panic, it might allow the attacker to execute whatever code they want and become root on your system.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because OpenBSD's default configuration prevents mapping a page at address 0, so the code execution is prevented. So while panic is a bad outcome, it's a lot better than what could happen. And then they basically suggest that in a bit of the code, they should check for null before trying to jump to it, and that would solve this particular problem. Because their little the reproducer script to exploit this is, as you can see on the screen here, is only like 10 lines or so of code. Basically, some setup, to point to vfs.tempfs.0 in the sysctl tree, and then execute the sysctl call, and blammo, there's your system crashed.
Okay.
So nice to see them continuing to do their good work there and find more of these. Have to be interested to know how they're set up to actually do this and how hard it would be to do it against FreeBSD as well.
Yeah, if they have like a portable set of tools or scripts or whatever that does this, that could be really neat. Okay, so before we get into the rest of the news roundup, we're going to mention our second sponsor this week, which is going to be DigitalOcean. Of course, the website for that is DigitalOcean.com, and you can go there. And if you're creating an account for the very first time, don't forget, after you've created your account and you're all set up, go ahead and there's a place you can apply coupon codes. So you click that, put in the coupon code FreeBSDNow. Not BSD Now, you got to throw the FreeBSD Now in there because at the time that was when they were deploying FreeBSD as their new thing. But of course, once you use that coupon code, it gives you a $10 credit, which can be used for running any of their VMs. So you can put it whatever in there you want. So if you want to run OpenBSD or Net or Dragon, I mean, there's ways you can do that. You can look that up. I think we even have something in the feedback section today. Somebody sent in about DigitalOcean, how you can do like a vanilla FreeBSD install in it and replace theirs. So lots of really neat, cool things you can do with the DigitalOcean droplet. Of course, having everything available via your browser, very cool. Having a nice REST API, even cooler, in my opinion. That's pretty neat because you can spin these up and tear them down programmatically.
Yeah, so you have the REST API, plus with the HTML5 console, you could, like you said, you can get right at the console of the machine and fix whatever might be broken or replace the OS with something else. And yeah, like we said, $5 a month gets you 512 megs of memory, one processor core, 20 gigs of SSD, and 1 terabyte of transfer. And if you're thinking, well, 20 gigs of SSD, that might not quite be enough. Now that their block storage feature is available, you can get resizable storage up to 16 terabytes to attach to your ZFS or to your droplet, and then you could run ZFS on the block storage if you want. But you can get your smaller droplet with as little bit of disk space, and then attach a large chunk of space to it to store all your stuff. So suddenly they become that much more useful. You don't need to get the more expensive one to get that little bit of extra space. You can just buy the space separately.
Very nice, very nice. So, of course, they have data centers all over the world. So pick one close to you. They have a little tool on their website so you can check ping times between there and bandwidth between the different data center options, and then pick the one that makes the most sense for whatever it is you happen to be doing. I know me and Alan use it for various different things, and it is nice having an offsite FreeBSD box up in the cloud, so to speak. Good stuff. Okay, let's get to our next story here, Alan. So root privilege escalation on NetBSD. Yes. So what's going on here? Looks like something with mail.
Yes. So this is the author decides that this exploit for NetBSD harkens back to the 90s. He says, spawn your shell like it's the 90s again. He says, this article is a quick walkthrough to gain root privileges on NetBSD. And since it's so 90, he starts pulling out some old Europop music from the 90s.
Oh, wow.
And Polish discos and so on.
Hey, the exploit's bad enough. You don't need to rub salt in the wound, my friend.
So they said abusing setuid files should be dead in the 90s, but surprisingly, it's still alive. By going over the Coverity scan reports from the NetBSD setuid files, I accidentally found a time of check to time of use vulnerability in mail.local, which is a utility in NetBSD that allows you to deliver mail to other users on the same system without having to, fire up your mail agent, send it out through the mail server and have it deliver all that. It just is a binary that allows you to just basically write directly to the user's mail spool on the local system. It turns out that OpenBSD solved this issue about 20 years ago, and I guess it just never made it back up into NetBSD. And because FreeBSD uses SendMail, it provides a different implementation of mail.local that doesn't have the problem.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the bug.
Interesting. So the mail.local utility contains this time of check versus time of use vulnerability. That means that it checks if a file or permission is valid, and then later uses that information to decide what to do. But by time it does that, an attacker could have changed the file that it just validated. And then when you checked it, it was a file that I had access to. But when we actually go to do the work on it, that file might have changed, and now I don't actually own it, and the utility is doing something bad. And that's exactly what happens in this case.
So you just keep looping. One of the times you will make
Yeah,
it there.
it's a race condition. Sometimes you have to do it a couple thousand times, but eventually you can do it. So this is mail.local appends a message to the indicated user's mailbox. So you run mail.local in a username, and then everything you type in before you end a file gets written to that user's mail spool, right? Here's the new message. It first checks if the target user already has an existing mailbox file, right? So it looks in like var spool mail and sees if there's a file called Chris. If there isn't, it will create it. And if it does exist, it checks to make sure that it's not a symlink to something else, right? And make sure that it's a plain file. If it is a symlink or something, then it exits with an error to prevent an exploit. But in this case, like I said, if the file doesn't exist, it'll create it. If the file needs to be created, it will then chown it to be the owner of the mailbox. In this case, Chris, right? Because Alan's running this tool, and I want to deliver mail to Chris. Chris doesn't have a mailbox right now because it's just the first message he's gotten, and so it creates the file and chowns it to Chris so that Chris will be able to read his mail.
Sure.
And that's where the problem lies. If mail.local checks and does not find the mailbox for Chris, sorry, I lost my spot. But in the meantime, after it checks that the file's not there, I then create a file called Chris that's actually a symlink to say etc master.password. Then the script will run. It'll open the master password file, append some stuff to the bottom of it, and then it'll be like, oh, I had to create that file, even though it actually didn't, because when it went and opened it, it was actually opening the symlink instead of creating the new file. I had to create that file, so I'm going to chown it so that it's owned by Chris. And now the master password file is owned by Chris, who can then go in there, edit it, and add root, change root's password to one he knows, and then log in as root or whatever. So the article explains how this could be used to replace the master password file or something, but the guy who wrote the article opted for an easier solution that will be less detectable. So what they did was replace the user bin @run utility, which is the one that does the thing. So basically, cron tab runs @run every 5 minutes as root. So he has the mail.local chown @run to his user so that he can replace it with a shell script that copies the shell, like KSH, to /tmp and sets its set UID.
Oh, nice.
So every 5 minutes, cron tab's going to run this new @run script that I was able to replace because I got mail.local to rename it or to chown it to me. So now root's running this every 5 minutes, and when it does, now there's a corn shell in /tmp, and any user who runs it, the shell will run as root. And blammo, I have root on the system.
Yeah.
So
That's bad.
So NetBSD fixed the vulnerability by changing the code flow, separating the case of when you're opening an existing file versus when you're creating a new file. So before it was check if it's a link. If it's not, then open the file, deal with errors, but then do this. Then later append to the file, and then at the end, if we ended up having to create the file, then chown it. Now it looks at it more closely and checks if it's a link. Then if it needs to, it creates the file and does one set of code. And if it doesn't, then it appends to the file and does a different set of code. It also checks when it actually opens the file before it starts writing to it. It checks if the inode number of that file is still the same as when it checked that it wasn't a link. So that if you replace it, it'll catch it after it's opened the file and then give out on you. And it also checks that it's in the same file system on the same device, because inode numbers are only unique to the file system. So I could theoretically create, symlink that points to a different file system and be able to get the same inode number. So they defend against that as well. But it's definitely an interesting, very simple case that you can see of how these time of use, time of check exploits actually work. And the article explains it very well and has lots of code samples and kind of points out all the different bits and does a very nice job of explaining how that works.
Yeah, that's quite detailed and well done.
Because the other thing is, you'd expect that because you're running lstat and then open whatever, so quickly. Like there's only a couple lines of code in there. It's not like it's going to take many seconds before it gets from here to here, right? It's going to be like milliseconds. But with his little attack program creating the symlink in a loop, he found it only took about 3 seconds to win the race and actually swap out the file between when the stat was done and when the open was done. Even though they're only like 4 lines of code apart or something. Like the only difference is there's like an if statement in between and that's it. But yeah, the time it took was 3.09 seconds to win the race in his attempts.
Yeah, that's almost
even if it took minutes, you're getting root access on a machine that you are just a regular user. That's a pretty big win. You'd be willing to wait a couple of minutes trying to win the race there.
The bar is set really low there.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, good. Well, I'm glad it's been fixed, and hopefully that gets people thinking maybe there's other places they need to check to make sure this isn't happening elsewhere. And hopefully some better checks will come out of this. People may find and fix other bugs. Speaking of other bugs, a heap vulnerability was announced this week, found and fixed in FreeBSD, specifically in the upstream BSPatch, which is the binary patch utility. The specifics of it, turns out it didn't check for negative values on the number of bytes that you read from the diff and extra streams, which could allow an attacker controlling maybe the patch file, for example, to write to an arbitrary location in the heap, which is bad.
So this is
somebody would have to give you a bad patch file,
right? But this is used in a lot of projects. Chromium uses it, Firefox uses it, FreeBSD Update uses it. It's very popular tool written by Colin Percival that allows you to basically ship updates for your application without having to ship the whole new binary. It's the reason why when you download a Firefox update, it's like 4 megabytes instead of 40 every time. It's because it's using BSPatch and BSDiff. But yeah, it turns out that if a malicious patch file tells you to read negative bytes from the patch file or one of the other files, you can corrupt some memory.
That's not good. Or run arbitrary code, result in a crash or arbitrary code execution.
Yeah. When you're patching your browser, you really don't want it to be exploiting your system.
That's right.
So the issue was first discovered by the Chromium project, but then was also reported independently by Liu Tongpin to the FreeBSD project as well. So there's a link here to the Chromium issue tracker where they say, BSPatch's main loop reads 3 numbers from the control stream in the patch, X, Y, and Z. The first 2 are the number of bytes to read from the diff and the extra file, and thus are only meant to be non-negative, while the third one can be positive or negative and moves the old position pointer on the source image. These 3 values are 64-bit signed integers encoded somehow in the file that are later passed to functions that read from the stream, but those values are not verified to be non-negative before they're passed into the read function. And so there's that's being fixed. But it says here that Chrome and Chrome OS have 4 different implementations of this program, all derived from the same original code by Colin Percival.
So I guess this means it's vulnerable on other operating systems as well, like if you're running Chrome?
Yes. So this is built into Chrome, so every version of Chrome and Chrome OS are vulnerable. I imagine Firefox is using this as well. The BSPatch is used all over the place. Probably lots of commercial products are going to be vulnerable as well. This one is going to be far-reaching.
Okay.
It makes
definitely
me
patch your systems now. This is a big one.
I'm actually thinking now about capsicumizing BSPatch on FreeBSD, since you're just opening like 3 files and modifying them or whatever. After you do that, it would make very sense. It should be very easy to open the file descriptors, then lock down with capsicum and only reading and writing those files and not be able to do anything else.
That makes sense.
It seems like
do that.
Yeah, it's a small enough project that it should be nice and clean to do.
Okay. Cool. Well, definitely patch your systems now. This is a bad one, so get your system updated. Okay, folks, time to hit all the beastie bits here. We got a lot of things to rapid fire at you, so we're going to do that before we get into your feedback and questions. So first up, we have a Twitter post here by our producer, actually, JT, and he's asking, anybody out there who's a bug member or organizer, please contact BSD Now, because we want to get details on that. Which that would be good. Speaking of which, we had our next Knox bug meeting last night, and that was really good. We had to talk about cryptography.
But yes.
And just kind of some of the core principles behind it, how it works. Maybe we even did a little bit of the math too, which I suck at.
Yep.
So that was fun. But it was good. It was good to see. And the person who gave the speech, somebody works up at Oak Ridge National Laboratories, which is a very secure location up here. Although he's not on the super secure side, but secure enough. And they talked about all the two-factory type stuff they do now with smart cards, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah,
definitely a good talk.
If your bug can let us know 2 or 3 weeks in advance of when your meetings are, we can make sure people know about them in time to actually manage to show up. Nicebug usually tends to tell us is like, oh, announce on your show that our meeting is tomorrow. It's like, well, we can do that. We'll remind people. But if we had told them last week, they might have actually seen the episode in time to know to plan to go.
That's true. That's true. You got to remember, not everyone watches it live.
Yes.
Not everyone's going to see it within the first hour of it coming.
Yeah, most people end up watching it within the week of when it comes out. So you really want to let us know 2 or 3 weeks in advance, and we'll start, shouting it from the rooftop so that more people show up to your user group. Because I know for a couple of people, it was like, oh, I didn't even know there was a user group around me. I'd love to go to those. I wish there was one around me. So yeah, let us know.
Okay. So send us info on that. We'll make sure we get in the show. Just send it early enough. Okay, next up, Ted Ewinks writes about some interesting localizations to GCC and OpenBSD and why they are there.
He provocatively titled, "One Reason to Hate OpenBSD."
Oh, no. Okay.
But yeah, this is in the GCC-local man page, which is a man page that documents all the local changes to GCC. It says, the -02 option does not include F strict aliasing, as this option causes issues with some legacy code. The strict aliasing is very unsafe with code that plays tricks with CAS, bypassing the already weak type system in C. And he shows an example of what that looks like. And then he says, the strict aliasing optimization is disabled in GCC 4.2 because it was disabled in GCC 3.3. It was disabled in GCC 3.3 because it was disabled in GCC 2.95. It was disabled in GCC 2.95 because it was the year 1999.
Head hurts already.
Yeah. But it was disabled in 1999, and it's just been left disabled because that's how it's always been.
Because reason.
We've always been at war with East Germany or whatever. Yeah.
Good stuff. But those things hurt my head. Okay. Next up is a list of products based on FreeBSD. So it's up on Wikipedia. And we're asking for folks to help complete that list. So if you get a chance, click on that. They have a pretty complete list of products there. But if you know of other things, try and get that written on there as well. So yeah, they have the PlayStation and Vita and all that. So that's good. And of course, the IXsystems stuff, TrueNAS, et cetera.
Yeah, there's
open source projects.
Lots of different appliances, a lot of which you might actually have used. Looks like somebody added WhatsApp since last time I looked at this list.
Good.
But yeah, if you know more stuff that is using FreeBSD, then do add it to the list. We'd love to have this.
Yeah, if you find like a weird TV or something. Oh, I see they got like Panasonic's already written down there. Good.
But I know there's somebody sent us a screenshot of some other TV booting up and showing the FreeBSD thing.
Okay.
And
very cool.
The Jeep ones we saw weren't actually running FreeBSD. It was QNX, which is having to borrow a lot of code from Open and FreeBSD. But yeah.
Very cool. Okay, well, next up we have some news about, it looks like VirtualBox has been updated to 5 in the FreeBSD port tree. So specifically, they jumped straight to 5.0.26, which is cool.
Yeah.
I wish I knew what the differances were in that.
I think there are a couple of features. I know that there were some problems with 5 in the past, but they've got those all worked out now. And
and just 3 days ago, they released 5.1. Darn it. Already
of course they did.
No, but we're on the last stable release of 5.0. So 5.0.26 is the most recent of 5.0, and then 5.1.2 just came out as well. So maybe we'll get that one down the road. But I'll have to take a look.
It might make sense to wait a couple of weeks until they iron out all the bugs of the next dot release.
That's true. Anyway, good stuff. I'll have to try that out and see what's different. Of course, I don't hold out any hope for like graphics pass-through yet. That would be what I really want, but I'm hoping Beehive gets there first.
Well, just interested, this is remove fake DRM and install OpenGL wrappers and allow X servers to load GLS extensions. I don't know why those two changes would touch VirtualBox, but maybe that's related. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll have to take a look at that. Anyway, I'll be playing with that here soon. That looks interesting.
Then
okay, next up we have the Skull Canyon NUC is booting FreeBSD 11.0 Beta 2.
Yes. So the new Skull Candy NUC, instead of the kind of this form factor, it's kind of more longer and even thinner, but it's much more powerful. It's basically designed to replace a gaming console out in your living room with a tiny computer that has high-end i7 6770 at 2.6 gigahertz and the highest-end Intel graphics. They got a message here of it booting up FreeBSD 11 Beta 2.
Okay.
Yes. I've been looking at one of these for my TV to free up the NUC that's currently doing my TV to do other stuff.
Interesting.
I love those little computers. It's just, nice
I need to get one of those. I need to get one.
They're very nice.
Okay, next up we have BSDCon does trip reports, and it looks like Trent Thompson, who's done IOHive, wrote a trip report up for the Foundation blog here. If you want to click on that and see some of the details.
Specifically says, spending a week in Canada with a large group of BSD hackers was not what I expected, but in a good way. He says he's gone to a few information security conferences in the past, but they do not compare to the knowledge gained and the fun I had in that week in Canada.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I hung out with Trent quite a bit while we were out there, and that was fun, and I'm glad he had a good time.
Yes.
Okay. And then last up here, we have the August London BSD meetup has been announced. So what are the dates on that?
Yes, so August 4th, they'll be having their meeting at a pub called The Old Red Cow. This is we have another visitor to the city next month, and this time it's NetBSD Alistair Crooks who'll be joining the meeting. So definitely go out and see that. And that's
great.
71 Long Lane. And then they have the rest of the address and the postal code in here, so you can find it says inside the pub or in the arch next to the entrance.
Nice. So make sure you get out to that. You have about a week and a half before that happens. Okay, here. Well, I guess we're going to get into questions from you guys out in the audience. But first, really quick, before we do that, the last sponsor this week is going to be Tarsnap. Of course, the website for that, tarsnap.com/BSDNow, where you should go get signed up today. First of all, if you are using Tarsnap, we thank you because you're doing the right thing. So that's just the correct way to do your backups, is using Tarsnap, of course, for all the reasons we've mentioned in the past, such as being able to encrypt everything properly and securely and not having to trust whether the remote end is snooping on whatever it is you're trying to back up. And second of all, because we love Tarsnap. It's open source in the sense that you can grab all the source yourself, download it, compile it. You don't even have to trust the binaries that they're providing, which how many backup solutions really provide that? Not that many that I can think of. So, of course, check that out today. And when you talk to them, if you ever talk to those guys over there, mention you heard about it here on BSD Now, and we would appreciate that. But you'd be surprised how cheap it is, especially if you're backing up data that doesn't change a lot. So makes it super simple, and they've got example scripts. I mean, throwing it in cron is pretty stinking easy. So I would definitely get set up today. And if you don't want to compile it yourself, they have clients for just about everything under the sun. Odds are it's already in whatever your native package system is anyway. So you can grab it that way and go to town.
Yep.
Anything you want to throw in there?
Nope.
Okay. Good deal. Well, let's go to our questions. So first up, we have Michael who asks about some open source alternatives. He says, hello, Chris and Alan. Thanks a ton for your great show. Love listening to every week, and it has helped me learn more about Unix in general and FreeBSD in particular. I have a question that you might be able to discuss on your show. Here's the background of my situation. I've been running on a beefed up Mac Mini as my primary machine for 5 years, but it's getting to be a bit slow while doing anything besides general surfing of the web. My main use of the Mini has been running virtual machines via VirtualBox, Linux and Windows, photo management, and some photo editing. Looking ahead, I'd like to get a new computer, and I'd be willing to try out FreeBSD/Desktop BSD as the base platform. I have only limited experience with the BSDs, but I do have a FreeBSD box running a Plex server at home. The reason for FreeBSD, of course, is ZFS. I like the snapshot feature and see that this could really be beneficial to keeping my documents safe. Now some of the software I would need to run runs solely on Windows and or OS X, mainly a hardware security device, an application for online banking, and secondly, I have a large amount of photos, about 500 plus gigabytes, in Adobe Lightroom for photo management. This software doesn't run under FreeBSD from what I could see. No, it does not. He says, I could, of course, set up a virtual machine for running Windows software on BSD, but are you aware of any alternatives? Should I run a VMware VirtualBox, something else virtual machine to tackle these software limitations? Maybe Beehive will increase the virtualized performance in this scenario. The thought of working on a bunch of raw photos in a virtual machine seems slow to me, so he's concerned that he'll take a big performance hit if he tries to do something like that.
I wouldn't expect much performance hit now that we have hardware virtualization. The performance hit might come at a virtual disk will be slower, but I would say...
give it some SSDs.
Or if you access the photos over NFS or something, so inside the VM, you're accessing the photos directly off the host or off your FreeNAS or your storage, your FreeBSD storage server. If you're doing it over the network through the VM, it'll be a lot faster than off a virtual disk image in the VM.
Mm-hmm. Well, he talked about changing software to Google Photos isn't an option because he wants to have photos locally, not indexed by someone else's computer in the sky. And he also asked about any ideas regarding GPU pass-through for virtual machines. I would love to get that working. I know others have mentioned that too. So if anybody has got that working, write us and let us know. But I have other reasons because video games and whatnot, being able to play those in VM sound really good. He says, do you have any comments on how I should proceed in these matters? What do other BSD users who must rely on Windows software or for general gaming? He said, dual booting isn't really what I was hoping for, and I'm hoping for an opportunity to try out a semi-pure BSD instead. So I do a mix of things. So my folks have a PCBSD box that they use Windows in a VM for a banking application, right? Works fine.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, they even have dual screens. So when they boot up PCBSD, they just click VirtualBox and start it, and Windows shows up on the second screen. So they can move the mouse back and forth, and it's all running in PCBSD. And then we can snapshot Windows, which came in really handy because Windows got corrupt after an update one time, and we rolled it back. So that was a bad one. And then my wife does something similar. We, for some schooling application for our kids, it's one of those Windows-only closed source things. So instead of fiddling around with Wine, I just threw it in a VM. It works great. They do the same thing. For myself, I do some gaming, so I do have a couple machines dual booted because that's just the better way to do it, in my opinion. Wine kind of sucks for that. When Steam Linux support starts working, maybe I might be tempted to switch back. We'll see.
Yeah. For me, I've been lucky enough to have more than one computer, and I don't usually dual boot because I hate rebooting. I get state built up on my machine. There's things open. It's even my Windows machine here has 63 days of uptime at the moment.
Nice. That's amazing for a Windows machine.
Yeah.
Don't ever touch that.
Yeah.
Going for the record. Oh, that's cool. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could do this. I don't think you're going to take a huge hit from virtualization.
Nope.
Maybe try that new VirtualBox we just mentioned that just hit ports. Maybe it has, it looks like it's got some neat, I was just reading through the changelog for 5.0. Looks like there's some
the nice thing for that is you'll be able to actually just pick up the VirtualBox settings, like the VMD or VDIs and so on that you have on your Mac, and plop them on your new FreeBSD machine and fire VirtualBox and launch them, and it should just work.
Sure.
And so that'll provide you quite a bit of incentive to keep using VirtualBox because it's no new stuff, right? You don't have to build new virtual machines, although you can add new ones or whatever.
You could also serve the all your photo files, actually store those on the FreeBSD machine in ZFS and then share them into the VM.
I would highly recommend that for performance.
Yeah.
And security. You want your photos to be on ZFS.
That's right. You can do that a couple different ways. You could obviously do Samba share, but
that's what I do.
VirtualBox does let you do a shared folders. It has its own way of doing it as well. So that's what I did with my folks' machine too. It's on their Windows side they have a folder, and on their PCBSD side they have a folder, and if they drop files in it, they're shared between the two. Yep. So you could do something similar between all your VMs. Okay, so let's move on here. So you want to read this next one here, Alan?
Herminio writes in about a wireless AP and DHCP. He says, hey guys, great show. I have an issue that I'm hoping you can help me with. I have FreeBSD 11 on my Raspberry Pi 2, and I've set up as a Wi-Fi router. My laptop can see the SSID that I created and joins the network. However, DHCP fails to complete the negotiation. I ran TCP dump on both sides and see that FreeBSD sees the DHCP discover and sends a DHCP offer, but my laptop never receives the offer as the DHCP request never gets sent. This is I see this in my varlog messages, and I'm not sure if this is related. DHCPD send packet, no buffer space available. Yes, it's probably the problem. something with the wireless isn't quite working, and so the packets aren't actually getting sent. The application is sending them, but then the OS, when actually trying to send it out, the wireless NIC isn't able to, and the buffer gets full, and then you have a queue of packets waiting to actually go out the hardware because it's not up or whatever, and then eventually it just fails. I'm not entirely sure why. Usually with wireless, if one person is sending and you're not receiving, I would think that maybe the password is wrong or something, so it's not decrypting right, but it sounds like you are actually getting some packets. So I don't actually know.
That might be something. If FreeBSD experts within the sound of our voice can hear this, please write in if you have any suggestions, something they could try on that.
Yeah.
Or maybe this is something you want to go hit up one of the IRC channels or the FreeBSD forums with. Something might have some things for you to try anyway.
BSD MIPS channel on EFNet is where all the embedded people hang out. So there's a lot of people in there that know about wireless and Raspberry Pis. You didn't mention which wireless device you had, which might have also been useful information.
Oh, he does say he's using the Raspberry Pi 2. I will mention this. So when I got my Raspberry Pi 2, it came with a little wireless adapter. I tried that and I couldn't get it to work for an access point. And I switched to another USB adapter that was raw link, I think, and it worked fine.
That's like the UWRN or whatever?
Yeah. I don't even remember now. It was some raw link. But anyway, that was something, and I didn't fiddle with it. I didn't even bother to investigate. I just tried it. I was like, oh, I can't associate, can't get an address. And I went and grabbed another NIC, or I had another one sitting there, plugged it in, just changed the rc.conf settings over, and it worked without a flaw. So something to consider if you're using the one that came shipped with your RPI too.
Yep.
Okay, so next up is Jake. This is a quick one. I'll read this. He says, thanks, guys. Thanks as always. I just read that Plasma Desktop 5.8 is going to be a long-term supported release. Any chance this will land in FreeBSD anytime soon? I don't know.
Actually,
it's being worked on.
I saw somewhere someone saying that KDE 5 is in the FreeBSD testing repo. I don't actually know where the testing repo is.
Well, there's an Area 51 repo.
Yes, that's the one.
The porting team uses, and it's in Subversion, so you'll have to check that out. And then they have a merge script you can run that will splat their changes into your port tree, right?
Yes.
Then you can go rebuild everything. I used to do that, except we don't do KDE anymore for PCBSD specifically. But I've heard it's somewhat workable.
So they have an experimental package repo where it's already compiled, and you can just install it.
Yes, and that's where they also keep like the new version of Qt before it hits FreeBSD port. So I do build that one more frequently because we want to try out a new Qt version to see what it brings us. I don't know what their ETA is on that. Every time I've asked, it's like, oh, there's still issues.
But they have an experimental package you can install apparently in that Area 51 repo. I just don't know exactly where that is at the moment.
Check it out. That's at freebsd.kde.org. I think we'll give you the details on that. It's their website.
Yeah, so you can start testing it now and help them find all the bugs and get it working.
Yep. Okay. Let's go on here. So we have Morgan about clean DigitalOcean droplets. I'll let you read this one.
He said he wanted to share a solution he came up with for getting super clean auto-configured droplets running in DigitalOcean with the latest version of FreeBSD, no extra junk pre-installed. He says, as background, DigitalOcean-based images come with a bunch of packages to support their auto-configuration, don't include ZFS, and have a FreeBSD user account created, since you can't log in as root by default, and what he calls other evidence of tampering. It just, he's not entirely sure exactly everything they've done, and so he'd rather start fresh and know exactly what's happening. The nice thing with FreeBSD, though, is you can just nuke all the packages and install fresh or whatever, and you get rid of most of that. But anyway, he says, so it's possible to have all of DigitalOcean in one-time effort. He says, initially, you start with their base server image, and from that, you rebuild it by booting an in-memory FreeBSD environment, like MFS-BSD, and run the standard BSD install tool. And from there, you're in control of the entire setup as usual, and you can set up ZFS or whatever you want to do, and you get a fresh from the factory untainted FreeBSD droplet. The downside is that all your networking settings aren't going to be there. So it won't be auto-configured from the metadata and so on. But that can be fixed with a simple shell script that he's thrown up on his GitHub and has a link here. So no extra packages or user accounts needed. After installing it and running and cleaning up the rc.conf, you can shut down your droplet, make a snapshot of it, and then clone that and have as many fresh, clean FreeBSD droplets as you need. And he says this is his first contribution to the FreeBSD community, and he's interested in feedback to make it even better.
Nice. He has some links at the bottom of the article here too. So if you go click on that in the show notes, you can see some of the things he's talking about here.
Yes, he's got lightweight, zero dependency self-configuration for FreeBSD droplets on DigitalOcean.
Okay. Very, very cool.
So if you want to use ZFS on your DO droplet, then that's an option. Although you can just do the leave UFS on the 20 or 30 gigabyte boot partition you have, and then throw ZFS on the new block storage backed, your choice of 1 gigabyte to 16 terabyte storage that you have there.
Nice.
The nice thing about that is, especially with ZFS, you just grow it if you need more space, and then you ZFS online -E, and zoop, it's bigger. And, if you're super paranoid, you can even get 2 of them and mirror them.
Well, this is a good first contribution.
Yes.
So send us more stuff like this.
Indeed.
This is good.
Thank you.
Okay, so last up we have Chris, who writes in, says, hello, on your call-in episode, you didn't mention the number, but I think it was, a week or two ago?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Mentioned issues somebody was having trying to get a handle on how often files were being accessed. He said, well, turning on A-time is definitely a valid solution. He said a better one might be utilizing the audit daemon, which after we read that, we're both like, duh, why didn't we think of that? But he said, while most logging seems to be based around Linux, the user in question would be able to configure audit data log the access of files in certain directories. He said there's a section in the handbook on configuring security audits, but specifically, this page has an example of auditing a directory. So he said, hope that works for him. Thanks for the show. So yeah, that's a good solution. So thank you for writing that in. Neither of us thought about that at the time, but definitely take a look at that. Maybe you can get all the results you need about who's accessing what in that directory. Okay, so that's the end of the questions and comments for the week. So we're going to close out the show here. So, of course, as we do so, we want to remind you, send any questions or comments. If you have stories you see, a lot of people sent us the Laporte story, which is good. It was like, all this stuff coming in, including people in my office telling me here. But send those all over to feedback@bsdnow.tv. That's the only place we monitor, so try and send everything there. We would appreciate that. Of course, we're still looking for people to interview. So if you know somebody or you want to get on the calendar for that, send us an email over to feedback@bsdnow.tv, and we'll go ahead and get that scheduled and make sure you appear on a future episode of BSD Now. And anyway, we'll see you same time next week and look forward to the next episode.